Hi, I'm Patty Lutsky. I'm the Product Management Director for Arbortext, and we'll be presenting some product updates and roadmap information. First, just at a glance, to give you some information about some past releases and then what's coming. Um, some from earlier. You could see, I guess, let's start this calendar year. We did have a 7131 release of Arbortext content delivery in January. And then just a couple weeks ago, in April, we had our releases of Arbortext 8010 and ALD 12010. Those were maintenance releases of the 8.0 stream, and I'll give a little more information about the Arbortext side, and then after me, Simon Taylor will talk about ALD. And then coming up in October will be our releases of all three products, the 8.1, 12.1, and then 7.1.4 versions. And of course, anything, in the future is subject to change, but that's our current planning. So this is just a high-level view of Arbortext, going back to 7.1 M50, which was the maintenance version. And then we had the 8.0 version in September 2019. In November, we released 7.1 M60. And at least according to our current planning, that'll be the last maintenance release on 7.1. 7.1 is supported through the end of this calendar year, but as of now, we don't have any scheduled maintenance releases to come out. Then, as I said, in April, we released 8.010, and I'll go into a little more detail on that in some upcoming slides. And then 8.100 is due out in October. So for 8.010, again, this was a maintenance release, but we do have some exciting news, which is it will provide support for using the OpenJDK. Prior to this, we were only supported with Oracle JDK, but now we do support Amazon Corretto, and we're on Java 11. We've added the publish to PostScript back in, so that's available in Editor and Arbortext Publishing Engine. And we've removed the restriction where we used to require that you would turn off HTTP only if you were doing forms-based authentication. But now we are able to support that flag being on. And it is a good thing, especially because Windchill, I believe it was in their December release, they actually turned that on by default. So for Arbortext users that were using the forms-based authentication, you had to have an extra configuration step. But now with 8.010, we are able to work even if HTTP only has been turned off. So again, this just came out a couple weeks ago. And then our upcoming release, coming for October, will be the 8.100 release. And this is a summary of what we're looking to get included in 8.100. First is some improvements related to our cloud support for Arbortext Publishing Engine. In general, the goal for 8.100 is to improve the support when you're doing Windchill publishing and you have Windchill and Arbortext Publishing Engine in the cloud. As many of you may know, that would include both the APE worker, which is used for individual documents, and the sys worker, which is used when you're using service structures like information structures, publication structures. In general, there'll be security-related improvements for the way Publishing Engine will be set up. In particular, we've had a security framework for Publishing Engine for a few releases now, but we're going to be turning it on by default. So um, there will be some additional configuration required for Publishing Engine, but it'll be running in a much more secure manner. And there's also some Windchill REST services enhancements, and I have an upcoming slide about that. Some customer requests, and I do have some slides about those. Multimedia publishing in Styler will be a new, added in 8100, and Simon Taylor will cover that in more detail. And then we are going to be removing the support for Arbortext Editor running in a web browser. So this, for those of you that know the technical details, it was the Arbortext embed protocol, which could be used to embed Editor in a web browser. We announced that it was deprecated last year for 8000, and now for 8100, we will be removing that support. So for the Windchill REST services, this is a set of APIs that have been built on top of Windchill, and it's been a couple years now that it's been steadily added to. So a number of new domains have been added and new capabilities. And we've had REST services for the dynamic document domain, and we, similar to the general Windchill REST services, have been making improvements to them over the years. And in particular, in 2020, we're targeting improvements primarily related to how links are handled, the links between the different dynamic documents. And so that should support editing of existing content in Windchill. But there's a number of additional features that are not yet in the dynamic document domain for the Windchill REST services, things like being able to create new documents. And over the next few years, we'll be continuing to build out these Windchill REST services. And as I said, there are a few customer requests that we've been able to get in as far as usability enhancements. I'll highlight two of them, but we are hoping to get more than just these two, but I thought I would mention these in particular. This first one was actually a request at last year's Arbortext Symposium, where customers told us that this particular toolbar icon that was removed, I believe back in 7.0 when we did some toolbar cleanup, that they really wanted that back. So we will be restoring this insert divisions toolbar icon and the associated dialog box capability. And this screenshot is showing the original from before the toolbar cleanup. And then this is another example of usability improvement. I believe this also was brought up at last year's Arbortext Symposium. The idea with this usability improvement is that we've had, as you can see on the right, we've had in the Resource Manager the ability to preview graphics that are stored in Windchill. So you're able to click on the graphic in the Resource Manager tree and then get a preview of it. But for customers that are not using the DITA or are not using the DITA Resource Manager, in the CMS browser, there was no such graphics preview. So we'll be adding that to the CMS browser. So for the Windchill adapter, if you bring up the CMS browser and you click on a graphic, you'll have the option to bring up this pane that you could see. This is the screenshot on the left. You can see there's this optional pane where you can see the graphics preview. And so that way it's much easier to figure out ahead of time whether you're selecting the correct graphic that you'd like to insert into your document. And so those are just, like I said, two examples of usability improvements. There are a few others, but I'm going to hold off on giving the specifics on those at this time. We will have more information, of course, when we get closer to the release and when we do the presentation more specifically about the 8.1 and 12.1 releases. So that's what I have. And now I'm going to turn it over to Simon Taylor to talk about Arbortext Layout Developer, and then Gil Schreitman will talk about Arbortext. Yes.
Thank you, Patty. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is what's coming up in 8.1 for Styler, and then we'll talk about the layout developer stuff. As Patty said, in 8.1 we want to introduce multimedia publishing to Styler. This means that we would like users to be able to include MP4 for video, MP3 for audio, and UCD graphics when they're publishing to HTML5 and to PDF. So in order to support this, we've added a new styling type. It's going to be called multimedia. If you style something as multimedia, then you can assign certain roles to the different attributes. We chose that rather than just extending graphic because there's different things you can do to multimedia than you can do with graphics. But you can also set things like the height and the width. With multimedia, you can also set a location for the poster image which gets displayed. So if you have a bit of video and you want to show a particular graphic instead of the default one, then you could do that. If you do style something as multimedia, you can also have a new multimedia category down here in the styling categories. This is only available on the element, context, and condition level. It's not available in property sets at the moment. It was proving to be a complete nightmare to make that work inside property sets, but I think it's okay for it to be in context and conditions and elements. With that, with that category, you get to choose the type of multimedia that you're going to be displaying, so video, audio, or 3D. And then you get to choose whether you want it to autoplay or to loop. Autoplay means that when the content is visible in your HTML, you can it'll automatically start to play the video or the audio. And looping is what it says. It'll allow you to play the video or the audio tracker over and over. For U3D, we're going to support that properly going to PDF. So there will be a conversion that will take your PVZs and convert them to U3D. So by the time it hits APP, it will be in the U3D format, and those will be embedded within your PDF as those graphic types, and you'll be able to manipulate those. Some of you will have seen the demo I've done in APP Desktop, where I've embedded U3D, and you can do all kinds of good stuff with that. But in this case, it'll just simply put the 3D graphic in place, and you can have access to stuff through the APP scripts functionality that you've got. So that's the multimedia stuff that's coming in 8.1. I'm pretty excited about that. It's going to be a nice, cool addition to Styler. So now we're going to move on to Layout Developer 12.1. This is a bunch of features that we've got coming up this year. I think it's October now rather than September. So the first one I'm going to talk about is we're going to start the process of making Layout Developer CSS aware. So there's already a little bit of CSS stuff built into Layout Developer, but we're going to start the process over the next 2 releases of making Layout Developer more CSS3 friendly. The reason we're doing that is because a lot of the CSS spec as it's been developed covers page layouts kind of properties. We also have a competitive gap, would you believe it, for Layout Developer, where a couple of our competition are using CSS, so it would be good to cover that one. For me, though, the big deal about using CSS is that it provides a much easier way of getting access to Layout Developer. So you can develop your style sheets in a CSS tool, and then plug them into Layout Developer and get a lot of the work done before you start to do the more complex stuff, which is what Layout Developer is all about. So a lot of the easy stuff will be taken care of, but the harder stuff you can do in desktop. So in part one, what we're hoping to provide is the ability to associate CSS with your XML in the document, and then use different selectors to kick off different things. We're going to use the CSS3 selectors, and there was something else I was thinking about, but it just popped right out of my head. So the functions will work. What we're going to do in part two is provide a bunch of functions which will relate to the properties and the different display types, so that we can tie those to Layout Developers' sort of fairly comprehensive formatting capabilities. Also, in 12.1, we're going to extend the debugger again. The debugger is a nice place to add extra functionality. We've updated the resources tree. So in the left-hand area of the debugger, there's an area where you can view the tags which are inside your document. We've updated this to support things like drag and drop. There's a new context menu, so you can rename, delete, create new, that kind of thing via a context menu. We've improved the sorting, both by type and by name, so that things with the same letter start in the same place, whereas before they were just sorted by capitals and lowercase. The drag and drop stuff is kind of interesting because it allows you to rename and retype tags inside your Layout Developer document just by dragging it to a different area within the resources tree, which is pretty cool. We're making some security updates to the debugger too, just to make it harder for people to use the socket connection to do anything naughty. And we've also spent some time working on the toolbars in Layout Developer to make them available via JavaScript. So you'll be able to create new toolbars, you'll be able to manipulate them, refresh them, create new actions, call in new icons and that kind of thing. Furthermore, we've got some changes that we've made to pseudo fonts. So pseudo fonts are virtual fonts which exist within your style sheet or your template. Okay, we have a similar thing inside style sheets where you can create combined fonts. APPs or Layout Developers pseudo fonts are a bit more complicated. What we've done is allow a scaling option, so people can select how to scale one of the sub fonts within a pseudo font. So you can sorry about that. My daughter decided she wanted to come in to the presentation. So if you have two sub fonts within your pseudo font, you can often see that the size of the font, the characters within the font are slightly different. If you want to make it look consistent throughout, you can now scale them so that they look like they're the same height. You can also choose how to change the properties when applying fake bold or italic. So if you want to make something a little bit thicker, you can do that by applying an outline, or you can change the angle of the slope for virtual italic. You can also use call a glyph ID rather than a specific character within pseudo fonts. We've also made some updates to display, some extra information from the yellow bar, and we're also adding some features to the yellow bar inside Layout Developer, so it makes it easier for people to edit content, that kind of thing. So one of the things that we're really excited about in 12.1 is the launch of a new version of the product. So we are going to have a new sort of lighter weight version of Layout Developer called Layout Editor. So this is targeted towards those customers who want to do manual document creation and document finishing, but don't necessarily want to do all the development tasks. So this new version of Layout Developer called Layout Editor will have none of the sort of developer functionality, so you won't have access to the debugger, you won't have access to certain tag types, but you will be able to do all the manual work that you can traditionally do inside Layout Developer. So you can create new pages, you can edit text, you can move frames around, you can add new frames onto the page, import graphics, and build a document by hand that way. You'll also be able to edit the XML, which is in there, which is something which you've always been able to do inside Layout Developer, and be able to save that stuff out as that's part of your workflow. There'll be new toolbars and new helpers to help people use XML and to do stuff within Layout Editor. And most importantly, we're making it more accessible to larger numbers of users by providing it at a much lower price point. The one restriction, though, that will be in place is that you will need at least one Layout Developer license in order to be able to purchase Layout Editor, and the reason for that is that you need to be able to save out Layout Editor files from Layout Developer. So this slide here provides an overview of the kind of workflows that we're aiming to support. So the first one really is semi-automated document production. So somebody would have developed their templates in Layout Developer, they deploy them on their PE servers, and then they make requests to the PE server to create documents. Those ALE documents will be saved out from the PE server, then opened up by ALE users on their desktops, and they can finish the documents by making sort of the last minute tweaks, fine-tuning the layout, making it all look pretty and beautiful, and then they'll be able to create their PDF or their PostScript output from there. The other one is full manual document production. So rather than expecting the server to do the work, you would open up the template in ALE, you would run some pre-built scripts which have been defined by the development person in Layout Developer. Those scripts will do things like build pages and provide most of the work done to create a document, and then your ALE user in the desktop environment will be able to tweak that, finish the document. What we found is there's a lot of our customers who are service providers for big publishing houses. They will have many licenses of Layout Developer desktop, which is kind of overkill, really. They need a lighter weight version of the product in order to be able to work efficiently and in order to do it in a cost-effective kind of way. So Layout Editor is targeted towards those people first and foremost, but anybody who's got a document finishing requirement as part of their workflows, then it will also be helpful for those to have a few licenses of Layout Editor in order to make that work. One of the things that I've highlighted here is that Layout Editor will have its own file types. These will be different to the standard Layout Developer file types. With Layout Developer, you can open it up in Notepad and pretty much code anything you like, and that's going to be a restriction in Layout Editor, is that the file types will be self-contained, and you won't be able to edit them in a Notepad or something like that. So we're looking forward to this. It's we haven't released a new product based on Layout Developer for a long time. We think it's going to be really helpful and useful for a lot of our existing customers out there to have access to all the sort of power of Layout Developer pays out wise without having to go to the cost of the full Layout Developer license.
So as Patty mentioned, you will be focusing the next release that's going to be available in October is going to be focused on the following areas: the SSO solution out of the box, standard-based, the scalability improvements, the customizations, upgrade tools improvements that will allow you to easily maintain your customizations while moving from one release to another. Some improvements around cloud, a couple of SIM alignments to make it the integration and synchronization between our products more aligned, an hotfix installer, and some administration, infrastructure, and software updates. And I will go through those real quick. So starting with the SSO solution, as Patty started to describe, the business value that we are after here is reducing the customization, maintenance, and upgrade cost and cost of ownership around that. So, and also adopting a commonly used and robust, secure industry standards for this. So this will avoid the need to maintain any of the custom flows that were adopted earlier in prior releases, and it will be much more capable of integrating with any third-party 2PTC software or any other product that your delivery system might be integrated with. This includes an ERP or e-commerce site that you use in the flow or the process integrations to any portal that you're using from which the delivery system is accessed, as well as further integrated with the ThingWorx connected apps for additional IoT or AR, augmented reality usages in the future. Currently, we are supporting this using Ping Federate. That's the default recommended central authorization server that we use. We certify it with a 9.3.3 version that's going to be available in this release, and we can also we provide a flexibility to configure it with others as well. We also streamline the deployment and setup process around that, so we'll be providing setup scripts and we'll support this through the configurator utility that we provided in earlier versions to streamline and make it easy for you to set up and maintain this configuration. Next is some improvements around scalability of the product. So we are enabling, this will enable the delivery expansions into other business units or organizations that you might be after. And we are allowing you to extend the data sets that are supported or delivered through our application. First and foremost, part lists. That could include more than 1,000 parts. So we have a couple of customers who have been requesting this, and we are optimizing the loading and runtime performance processes to support or better handle the viewing or the interfacing those in our application. We also improved a couple of part list navigation experiences with the link from assembly to sub-assembly viewing breakdown. So this is also going to be captured in this version. Customizations upgrade tool. So the value that we're providing here is first and foremost reducing the customization, maintenance, and upgrade costs. So this will allow you to retire some of the heavily customized sources that you have been implemented with our implementation vendors in the past, and will allow you to reduce the cost of ownership. We are providing a couple of capabilities that will allow you to support that. First is the version control report. So we'll provide a version-to-version source comparison report that will list all the customized sources files that will get impacted once you go through an upgrade process. And this report could also be used as kind of configuration management tool to allow you to keep track on source code changes, etc. So that's really useful for that. We are also providing a couple of key configuration points for some of the commonly used customizations that we used to have that our customers used to use in the past. The logo and background color modification, an ability to integrate with an ordering system directly from the out of the box, ability to set and define shopping parameters that will then further integrate with or will be streamlined to the actual store or ERP system that will keep track on the warehouse prices and availability, and also an ability to add attributes and modify those as per your specific business model needs. All of those will be available in the out of the box. Next, we'll also be providing some improvements around our cloud deployment offering. That's not only for PTC Cloud, but also if you would like to partner with an external implementer for cloud will be providing a transform and load task in the Arbortext Continuous Delivery Task Manager that will allow you to transfer the bundles that are being sent from SIEM to ACD from remote using an SFTP protocol. And we will be also supporting the loading, transforming and loading of zip bundle files. So to reduce the sizes that needs to be transferred throughout the cloud environment, and this also has of course, the cost implications to it. We also be aligning some of the SIEM loading processes, or we'll be introducing a couple of improvements around that. We're extending the published content report with an ability to support also Usability documents for any type of content. We previously supported only dynamic documents. We're a little bit short on time here, so I'm going to run through the slides. We'll also be aligning a couple of things about in ACD side around how we configure or allow to merge the service activities that are being defined between pass list and paths. So we'll be introducing a configuration point in ACD to allow you to control the logic, whether that's going to be a union or intersection between the two, to create better alignment with what you have defined, would like to pursue from the SIEM management side. And we'll be also introduce an ability to support and load the thumbnails that are being created for information structure and information element nodes from SIEM to ACD, from Winchell SIEM to ACD. In addition to that, we'll be also introducing an hotfix installer process. This is for eliminating the risks of errors and when applying PTC provided hotfixes. So we'll be introducing a wizard, installer wizard, that's pretty much similar to the one that's available for CPS version. That will be available in this version as well. And lastly, we'll be introducing a couple of administration and software updates, third-party software updates, to make sure that our product is made up to speed with the current software versions that are available in the market, such as the Oracle 19DB, replacing 12C that's ending its life, and Wildfly 18 as the web application server embedded in our software. That concludes my piece here.